What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's finally the night that nobody's been waiting for, so enjoy the shit show.
Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC 245, Usman versus Covington. We're going to talk about two free plays that we have on this card. This is a massive card for betting purposes as well as entertainment, top to bottom. A lot of plays that I do like. Going to talk about two here on the show. We have really finish off this year strong and want to finish off with the crown jewel of UFC events, UFC 245, an exciting card. Want to get right into it. So we will talk about the first free play that we're going to have is on a title bout between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. Now, currently we got the odds at Max Holloway minus 170. You've got Volkanovski at a plus 138. And we're going to quickly, as I always like to do, go over the last three fights of each fighter, kind of piece together what we think is going to happen, as well as what the other fighter can expose. We're not going to get into full-on statistics and all these other things. We're really going to dive into what we believe can happen in this fight, the probability of what's going to be happening, and the outcomes that are possible. So we're definitely going to get into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is Max Holloway. His first fight, or 3 fights ago I should say, was against Brian Ortega. Now this was a fight here where you take a look at it, Brian Ortega coming in with some hype, has that jiu-jitsu, a lot of people talking about that, but the big thing with Ortega is he doesn't have really great takedown ability. He's, able to get, grab your neck, get a hold of you, find ways to choke you out. We saw that with Cub Swanson. This was a fight where he just could not do anything right against Max Holloway. And credit to Max Holloway here. Ortega's striking isn't really full on there, and it was an absolute beatdown from top to bottom, a striking clinic. You almost felt kind of bad for Brian Ortega, how he was just brutally beaten up and just kept moving forward. Toughness, but there wasn't really much in this fight, so I'm not going to really dive into it in this fight that we could really, I believe, take into the fight that's about to happen with Volkanovski. So here, Ortega was not able to get it done. Max Holloway does get the doctor stoppage in that 4th round and gets the victory. 2 fights ago, he fought Dustin Poirier. He goes up in weight, lightweight, to look to fight, hopefully to fight Khabib down the road. This was a big step up here, and for me, this was one of more of a stay away. I liked Max going into this. I thought that Max was, the big question was him gaining weight. How would he look in that, in this weight class? What would he be able to do? And really, Poirier's power was just way too much. You saw that from the beginning of this fight to the end of the fight. There were spots where it was close, but you could really see how Poirier walked through Max's punches, where obviously even in the featherweight division, you do see where Max is the champion, and you do see that, he's not a knockout guy. He's a volume, death by accumulation. He just goes in there and just keeps firing and firing. His output is high. He's able to really lay it on, mixing it up. And with Dustin, who has got fantastic striking, great boxing, you just saw that Max just did not have the power to even push off Dustin at all at any point. Now, some people are already saying, hey, well, and I think that's also why the line is where it is because you saw Max struggle with power, and now you've got someone like Volkanovski who does have power. So, that was, I think, where the line has kind of gotten here. I think it's an interesting line. We'll talk about that more at the end of my breakdown here. But you did see that really, it was a great showing by Poirier. Max, you could see this was not the weight class for him. People always said, hey, he's big for the weight class. You should move up. You see that it's maybe down the road for him, that he said in some interviews. But for this situation here, Poirier was just way too much. Poirier gets the decision victory over Max Holloway. And then most recently against Frankie Edgar, which I do believe plays a part into this fight. Now, I rewatched this fight again. Again, I've seen it, want to break it down more. It's always great to take a look at these fights, see what you see if there's, again, you don't really remember certain things. Great to relook at it with the other opponent in mind. And this was a fight here where, yes, Edgar is out of his prime. He's not the from years ago, Frankie Edgar. He definitely still is tough. Heck of a wrestler, has some striking ability, can mix it up, tough as nails, has cardio, a lot of great things going into this. But I really like that how Max fought in this fight. And I think that's something that could really take apart into this fight now, happening against Volkanovski, is he used that jab so well. And I thought that was a great way for him to keep moving away from any kind of takedown opportunities there. Max has great takedown defense, but his footwork is fantastic too. And in this fight, he was able to really keep moving. He would jab, move away. Never was a stationary target, never was really sitting there and kind of complacent, looking to strike forward. He always kept moving, and Max has that cardio that he can keep doing that. He can stay on his bicycle, move around, land some big shots, never get tired, and he did that really throughout that fight. It was a landslide for Max Holloway, but I just really like the way that he was able to go into this fight knowing that the takedowns were going to be there. Max has good takedown defense. One, obviously, it's going to help where he's got the height, and really hard to take down guys with the long legs, and you're trying to get the sweep, you're trying to get that takedown. Very tough, but this was a situation where I think it plays well also for Max, is the fact that he just kind of fought a fighter like Volkanovski in Frankie Edgar, where there is some power, there's some toughness, there's wrestling, there's a lot of things. So for him to just kind of have a training camp with this in mind and then going into Volkanovski, I think that's a big plus for Max Holloway. But Max goes out there and does get the victory over Frankie Edgar. Now, Alexander Volkanovski, he is 20-1. 3 fights ago, he fought Darren Elkins. We're not going to get too much into this one. Darren Elkins is basically, a human punching bag. He kind of stands there. He's willing to take shots. He's tough. He's hard to put down. Volkanovski fought him, I think, very well. There's nothing against Volkanovski in this fight. But it's a fight to me that I don't believe really, again, triggers into what he's going to see against Max Holloway. 2 fights ago, he fought Chad Mendes. Now, this is a fight that I thought was very interesting. Again, another one I rewatched again. And this was a fight here where you've got, 2 guys who can wrestle. Mendes does have power. But you saw in that first round, it was close. That first round I thought was close. I would edge it over to Mendes in that first round, just the way he was landing, and I thought that Volkanovski really wasn't exerting as much energy. Really didn't look to put it on in that first round. I think he was kind of feeling it out. I slightly give it again to Mendes there. But really that second round I thought was extremely interesting, because that's when they both went at it. I think they both started landing some big shots. But you saw that Chad Mendes was boxing up Volkanovski. He was landing some shots, nothing too creative, to say the least. I mean, he definitely has got power and he's got some good boxing, but it wasn't anything that stylistically or technical that would maybe trick him or slip through. And I thought that someone like Max has that technical skills and can mix up with the strikes and the kicks, and really, really tough to, he disguises where his combinations are coming from. And really, Mendes doesn't do that. Mendes is kind of a straightforward kind of guy, looking for the takedowns, and not only that, then he's going to throw a power shot up top. That's kind of what he's done over his whole career, pretty much the way that he's been. And in this fight, in the second round, he dropped Volkanovski. Volkanovski got back up. He was in trouble in spots. He was taken down multiple times in this fight. I thought it was very interesting, again, to rewatch that fight, because I had Chad Mendes winning up until the point where he ended up losing. But, I got to give, again, credit to Volkanovski. But in that situation, Volkanovski had an opportunity where he really had to dig deep to get out of a bad situation. He was hurt, and then he ended up coming back. And Mendes, we've seen this in a couple spots. Mendes, the cardio went away. The way that he was pushing for those takedowns, he was doing these really, he was doing a flying knee at points. He was really doing a lot of these movements that are going to take a lot of cardio, a lot of energy out of him. That drained him. I think if he had the cardio, he finishes Volkanovski, or at least it's an extremely close fight going into that, or it's his fight going into that third round. But Volkanovski ended up putting it on him, landed some nice shots, puts away Chad Mendes. But a very interesting fight. I suggest people who have not seen it in a while, rewatch it. It's a very interesting fight, just the way that it kind of played out. But I thought it was a great fight to watch. and he does get that victory. Then most recently against Aldo. Now, this was a fight that I was very confused on watching it, because you've got Aldo, who I thought looked incredible at the weigh-in. He looked big. He looked in great shape. He seemed in a great mindset. Looked like he was really going to power forward, and I thought this was going to be a great stylistic matchup for both of them. And it was an odd fight to watch, because never really did Aldo pull that trigger. He never really came out there, fired, looked for the big shots, went in there, looked at toe-to-toe and do those exchanges, show some toughness. He really stayed outside a lot, let Volkanovski, dictate the pace of the fight. Aldo never got into a rhythm. He kind of circled a lot. It really, even when there's spots where there's kind of a stalemate, where both of the fighters were kind of standing toe-to-toe, he always allowed Volkanovski to shoot first, and he never really threw a hard combination or went at it. Was just an awkward thing to see Aldo really, gun shy the whole fight. And it was even at the very end, where you knew, there was no way that Aldo was winning on the cards. He still wasn't really doing much. He still wasn't pushing forward. That's obviously easier said than done. You got to give credit to an extent to Volkanovski. Maybe he was tricking him in some way, or not giving him the looks he was expecting. However that may play out, but there's a point. Aldo is a veteran. I just thought it was a weird fight. An easy victory for Volkanovski, just because Aldo, I thought, looked terrible. But those are the breakdowns of the last three fights for each of them. So with that all being said, let's tie this together. Taking a look at it, I think the first thing you got to take a look at when you look at Max Holloway is really, again, mixing it up. His kicks, his punches, his striking, the way that he moves, his footwork, his high volume is incredible. We've seen what he puts out in rounds where he's in a rhythm and he just pours it on and really doesn't allow opponents to breathe, which is going to be something I think tough, where Volkanovski is used to kind of moving forward and being the hammer. He may be the nail here in spots, because he's going to have to really, find comfortable spots for him to actually throw those counters or lead or come out with that first shot. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be very interesting. And his takedown defense, some people are talking about the takedowns where, hey, Volkanovski can get him to the ground. I don't really see that happening as much. I don't really think that's going to be anything that's going to really change anything. But overall, I think a big part, again, I touched on it before, was the fact he just trained for Frankie Edgar. I think that is a really, really important piece that I don't think is really being talked about as much, just because of the style that he's going to be fighting. The same type of guy, same type of build. Slightly, Edgar had a less of a reach. Volkanovski has a little bit longer of a reach. But overall, I think that's an interesting piece to this. And now people talk about, with Volkanovski, they talk about his power. They talk about, and I'm not fully sold on Volkanov's power. He has shown some nice, some good strikes, but overall, he's another guy where I think he does have the cardio, and I think he can push forward. But if he's looking to stand toe-to-toe with Max, I think that's a terrible, terrible thing for Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski is going to come out, looking not guns blazing, but I think he's going to look to try to really get Max out of his rhythm early. And I think that's a terrible sign overall. And again, with the fact that Mendes was able to land some big shots, and he's not as anywhere near technically skilled striking-wise as Max is, I think for me here, I like Max Holloway here. I really think he does a fantastic job from beginning of this fight to the end of the fight. I'm not betting the decision, although I really like the decision, Max by decision. But I like Max. I'm comfortable with Max going, me going straight here at a -170. I think that is a fantastic price for an all-time great in his prime, facing somebody like Volkanovski, who, yes, has fought some pretty good fighters. I mean, you got to say Mendes and Aldo and even Elkins and some of the other guys. He's fought some decent guys, but some of them were just very questionable. I wasn't as impressed with some of these. It wasn't like he put a beat down on some of these guys. Yes, Mendes, but Mendes gassed. I mean, to me, I just really like Max in this spot. I'm comfortable with it. One of my free plays will be Max Holloway to defeat Alexander Volkanovski. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is another title fight here, is Amanda Nunes versus Germaine Durandamy. Now, I'm definitely hearing a lot of different things here and where things are going. Currently, we've got the odds Amanda Nunes is minus 300. You've got Germaine de Randamie, who is a plus 210. Now I'm seeing the odds already shifting up for Amanda. I'm seeing even minus 370 in certain spots, and certain books are doing so. Interesting where this is going to be going, but let's break it down. I'll try to go a little quicker, but let's break down the last 3 fights, or both of them. Quickly, we'll talk about her 3 fights ago. She fought Raquel Pennington. This one here is one that I kind of already took off as nothing that I can take into this fight. Now, Pennington, she's tough. She's not scared to fight anybody, but she's 10-7. And this also was a fight, although it got into the 5th round, but Pennington is one of her friends. They're couples, they're friends with Tisha Torres, and they're all friends. So it was a fight where it was almost like she didn't want to put the beat down on Pennington. Even in spots where I thought that she could have really laid it on her, she didn't. And until the very, 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 very end, where Nunes really had no choice. I mean, it looked like Nunes almost wanted them to stop the fight, and even it sounded like Pennington wanted the fight to be stopped. And then it ended up being where Nunes ended up getting the TKO in the 5th round. So I can't really take too much for this just because the way Pennington fights. But overall, you did see that Nunes did get that victory. Now against Cris Cyborg, which was an incredible fight. This was a huge bet for me last year. Nunes plus 250 and against Cris Cyborg. And this was a fight here where Cyborg has power, all these things, a lot of great things, but she just has not faced anybody near the caliber of Nunes. And saw right away, she came out there, exchanged, landed a big shot. Again, this was a fight here, not too long, so tough to really dive into it or break it down. But their exchanges happened. Nunes lands a massive shot, dropped her 3 or 4 times within that 51 seconds, which you can't even say, hey, a lucky shot, or hey, it was just, hey, she caught her on the chin once. I mean, she just kept landing big shots early on Cyborg. That fight ends TKO in the 1st round for Amanda Nunes. Was a great cash for me last year. And then most recently, you've got, she fought Holly Holm. Now, this was another fight here where people were really saying, hey, you know what, Holly was the underdog here, and hey, she's got the kickboxing, can she do it? So this was a fight that I thought is an important fight of what we're going to see against de Randamie. And here was another situation where I thought she fought great. She fought smart. She fought outside. She went inside, landed some big shots. I mean, it was almost like Holly couldn't really set herself for really setting up a nice combination. She landed a few decent shots, but overall, this was another quick knockout for Nunes. Nunes goes out there, gets the knockout victory with a brutal head kick. Very, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey-esque knockout. Great knockout overall, and was another win for Nunes. Now, 3 fights ago, you've got Germaine de Randamie. She fought Holly Holm. Now, this was a fight here where, we do the MMA math, win or loss, that kind of thing. This was a fight here where it was a very, very close fight, but also some cheap shots from de Randamie in spots where were very critical. And you could see there were shots that actually did hurt Holly and change the complexion of the fight. Now, it was very close overall. I thought that they both fought very well. I thought that de Randamie using her kickboxing, it was a nice striking exchange, very close. I think it could have went either way. You take a point away, could have went Holly's way and all these other things, or they stopped the fight, disqualification. There was some shady stuff going on for de Randamie, but this was a win overall decision for de Randamie to beat Holly Holm. Then 2 fights ago, she fought Raquel Pennington. Not going to get into this one too much again. This was pretty much a one-sided victory for de Randamie. She outstruck her from the outside. It was a 30-27 across the board. And again, just not technically sound overall. Tough as nails when it comes to a fighter. Can appreciate that, but she just is not that upper echelon, more of that gatekeeper, or more of that kind of fighter that is the name recognition, so she does get some of those good fights, but she did not get that victory. It was an easy decision for Germaine de Randamie. And then most recently, she fought Aspen Ladd. Now, I had bet de Randamie going into this fight, and was wondering how, would she look for those takedowns? Would she get those takedowns? How would this all really transpire? And obviously didn't last long. It was a knockout 16 seconds into the fight. And Aspen Ladd, who, you even saw what she just did recently against Kunitskaya. It was, there was spots where I thought that she looked sloppy. She's got some great takedown ability, and she's got a lot of sharpening to do when it comes to her striking. But you see here, this was kind of a fight. Again, I can't really take too much going into this fight. I've got a lot to talk about in a second here, but to take away what Ladd does to Nunes, yes, it was a nice showing for Durandamy. She does get the victory over Aspen Ladd. With that all being said, now we're going to say basically overall, when you take a look at these two, obviously the first thing you're going to look at, greatest of all time, possibly fighter, right now within the UFC, one of the best. And since she has won at UFC 200 Las Vegas, a fight that I was at, I have been riding Nunes since this point. I keep betting her. I can't get away from it. She always pretty much has some solid odds, and I've always, pretty much been riding this the whole way, cashing in with her. So it's kind of tough to anytime look to go against her, but I always go into these non-biased. You got to just break it down and take away your emotions of this. She does have the power. But again, I think the thing, and I've said this in so many other videos, that she not only has power, but she can extend her punch, and she could land power with her arm fully extended. A lot of times you're going to see in close hooks, or they need to, work that power with the, in tight quarters. But you've got someone like Nunes, who not only has power close, but can land from a distance away. She is so rangy with her striking. It is incredible that she's even able to land the power. You even saw that against Cyborg, where she was landing big shots from a distance, and almost Cyborg wants to be close. She wants that hook, that kind of in-close Tyson kind of fighting, where you've got Nunes who's comfortable throwing straights with tons of power behind it. And I think that is something going into this fight, it is going to be used consistently, and it's going to be interesting to see how Durandamy handles that. Now, again, the jiu-jitsu, some people are talking about and saying, hey, Durandamy is going to be able to stop the takedown and then outstrike her from the outside. Of course, that's possible. It is a fight. Anything is possible. But to me, I think that is an option if it gets in close. And that's something also that could possibly tire Durandamy in this spot. I think that's an interesting point to take away overall. Now, you take a look at Durandamy. Great kickboxing. She's another one just like Nunes. She does have good distance control. She's able to mix it up, and I think those are very great things. But when you take a look overall, first thing is that she did lose the first fight. Now, is that a mental thing? It was been a while. That was her only, I think it was her only loss within the UFC. It's been a while since that fight happened. Durandamy has done well. Also, Nunes has, become the champ. But I think the thing, again, where it goes to the exchanges. Now, this is going to be a stand-up fight. A lot of people are really, on that kickboxing side of Durandamy. I think she's got great striking. I definitely believe that. But I think the strength and power is definitely on Nunes' side. And I think when she gets in close or from a distance, and the way that she moves, and Nunes is incredibly smart as well, I think that is something that she's going to be able to take a great game plan going into this fight. And now everyone, again, you talk about Durandamy, she's 6-1 in the UFC. 3 of her wins are against fighters no longer in the UFC. And then she fought Holly Holm in a questionable win. She got it, questionable win. She gives up the title to not fight Cyborg, and it was willing to just give it up, which is a mentally a very strange move, where you are finally the champion and you decide not to fight. Very awkward there. Was she scared of her? All these other things. But that's got to be a mental thing also as well. And then she fought Aspen Ladd, a young up-and-comer, not ready for striking, and Pennington. And then you've got someone like Nunes, who has fought the who's who of women's MMA and have beaten them all, and pretty much beat all of them in very, very incredible fashion. So I just really like Nunes here. I think Nunes going out at minus 300 is a great price. I honestly thought when I first heard this fight was happening, I'm thinking minus 400, 450, maybe even higher. I was saying, and I think this is a recency bias kind of thing where Nunes, she hasn't, she hasn't really been in everybody's mind in a while. She hasn't been out there and you haven't seen, hey, there's a fresh knockout in your mind of Amanda Nunes, and sometimes you forget how amazing she is. And then Durandamy, the most recent is she knocked out Aspen in 16 seconds, and that clip keeps going on in everybody's mind. So to me, I think it's such recency bias that the odds are like this, and I think these odds are going to get up over 400 come fight night. But for me, Amanda Nunes minus 300. I love the play. Again, I'm not just betting her because I've been betting her since UFC 200, but I really believe that this is another great spot for her to get the victory and move on and continually build her legacy. So those are my 2 free plays for UFC 245. We've got Max Holloway at minus 170, and we've got Amanda Nunes at minus 300. Definitely let me know in the comment section what you're betting, if you agree, other plays that you like. I love having those conversations. I'm always going to be active in the comment section as the fights are going on, so feel free to drop a line, comment, whatever it is. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not yet done so. We will have the bet review show out Sunday or Monday, going over my plays, going over my Wagertalk plays, and we'll see how we do. Hope we all cash, and this is Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show, and I'll see you on the bet review.